Alright, hey everyone out there in Banjo Land, Mike Heading here. Today I've got a little banjo mini lesson for you. This time we're going to talk about creating your own banjo kickoffs. There's a lot of banjo kickoffs out there and you can memorize some if you like, but I'm going to give you 3 little easy things you can work on to help you create your own banjo kickoffs. First thing we need to do is figure out what note we want to end on. So that's the note we got to get to at the end of our kickoffs. That's really important, is finding the correct ending note. Much more important than finding the correct starting note, actually. Second thing we need to do is figure out, are we going to go up to our note that we want to get to, or are we going to go down to our note that we want to get to? And then lastly, we're going to figure out how much time do we got to fill. So how many notes do we need before we get to that final ending note that's going to start our solo. So I'm going to show you all that stuff. I'm going to break it down and give you a bunch of stuff to work on, and if you like what you're hearing, you can subscribe at the end and a free tab will be sent to you. Alright, here we go. Here's how to create your own banjo kickoff. Alright, so let's look at step 1 of creating a banjo kickoff. First thing we need to do is figure out what note we want to end on. And by that I mean, a lot of times banjo players get too caught up in what note they want to start on with their pickup. And while that is important, what's more important is finding the correct note to end on. And that's usually the note that's going to start our solo. So that's why it's really important, because if you end on the right note, it kind of makes whatever you did on the pickup null and void. If you don't completely hit the pickup, but you end on the correct note, the solo is still going to come across. Whereas if you start on the right note, but then end on the wrong note, it's going to be a lot tougher to carry a solo that way. So really important is finding the correct note to end on. And that's usually going to be the first note of our solo. So let's look at the key of G first. And what we're going to do for our kickoff is look to our chord tones. So those are the 3 notes that make up a chord. And our banjo is tuned to an open G, so it's really easy to find our chord tones. So it's just our top 3 strings, 3, 2, and 1. So we got a G, a B, and a D. It's not necessarily important that you remember those notes, even though it is helpful, but just remember there's 3 notes that make up any chord, at least any major chord in this case. So we got 1, 3, and 5. Those are the notes of the scale, the 1, 3, and 5. Don't have to remember that, but it is helpful if you want to find them in the future. Another little trick you can do to finding your chord tones is it's just the top 3 strings. So you can take your bar chord and put it wherever you want. So if you want to find the chord tones of C, you put your bar chord at the 5th fret and then play, 3, 2, 1. In this case, it's C, E, and G. If we want to find our D, So it doesn't matter where you put that, even if you don't know what chord you're on. I want to find the chord tones to A flat. So you can remember it's just the top 3 strings. So those are where our 99.9% of our kickoffs are going to land on one of those notes. So those are our chord tones. So that's really important, because if you can kind of figure out, okay, I need to land on one of those chord tones to end my kickoff, not only is it going to be a better chance that you're going to hit it, but if you don't know the song and someone looks to you to kick it off, you actually have a 33% chance of guessing the correct note by just using one of the chord tones. So really important. So remember, it's our top 3 strings, G, B, and D. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is figure out which of those 3 notes we need to end on. And it just depends on the song. So it takes a little bit of ear training to start hearing those different chord tones. But one thing you can do is connect them to a song. So you could do something like Will the Circle Be Unbroken starts on the G. So that's our last note. That's what I mean by the ending note. So however we get to that, and I'll show you a bunch of ways to get to that, but that's our ending note. That's what you could do. Or you could do, you could walk up to it or down to it, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, our next one is our B. So another one that comes to mind for that is You Are My Sunshine. So You Are My Sunshine starts on the B, so the 3rd note in the scale. And then finally we got our D. So something that comes to mind for the D is Bury Me Beneath the Willow. So our first thing we need to do is, remember, figure out what of those 3 notes we need to end on. So those are our ending notes. So it doesn't matter how I walk up or walk down to that note. That's the note I want to end on. You know, or remember, we're just thinking about the kickoff, so don't worry about what you're going to do after that at this point. And I'll show you this in a couple different keys, but let's keep working on G for now. Okay, so first thing we need to do is figure out what our ending note is. Okay, so we got 3 choices, choices. Second thing we need to do is figure out, do we want to go up to that note or down to that note? Okay, because we can either walk up, so in case of our G, we can walk up to the note, or you can walk down to the note. And remember, it doesn't matter, at least right now, which note you're choosing. Just think of, okay, am I going to go up to the note or down to the note? Because that'll help you kind of plan your kickoff a little bit accordingly. Remember, it's just about what note you end on. It doesn't matter how you walk. It doesn't matter necessarily how you get down there at this point, as long as you end on that note. You know, something like that. So try it from both ways. You know, find your ending note, and then try and go from above the note or from below the note. Same thing with the B. You go up to the note or down to the note. Same thing with our D. We can go up to the note or down to the note. Something like. So we only really have 2 options. We can go up to the note or down to the note. So the last thing we need to do is figure out how much time we have. Do we have a measure? Do we have 2 measures? Do we have a beat? Do we have 2 beats? Because your kickoff can be as long or as short as you want, as long as you end on the right note. So that's the other thing we need to figure out, is how much time do we have. A very common kickoff would be 1 measure, or you could do 2 measures. My advice would be the larger the jam or the larger the ensemble, the simpler you make the kickoff. If you're playing with a small group of people or in your band, you can do a more complex kickoff. But when you're first starting or you're in a big jam, start with something really simple. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, 4 or 3 very clean beats will really set the tempo for everyone. So try a couple different options. You can try 1 measure. You can try half a measure. This is where your counting really comes into play. You could do 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, or you could do 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you could do 1, 2. See, I'm doing basically the same kickoff with just different amounts of time. So I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'd be a whole measure. Or you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. That'd be 3 beats. Or you can do 2 beats or 1 beat. You know, you could just do 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how, since I'm ending on the right note, like I talked about, it doesn't necessarily matter how many beats I do. As long as I let the band know and I count it off clearly, the kickoff is still, the integrity of the kickoff is still there because I'm ending on the correct note. So same thing, try a bunch of different stuff. This is where you can do some different counting, or you can do some offbeat. 1 and 2, 3, 4. Like that. So as you get more advanced, you can do more complex timings for your kickoffs, but I would start with something really simple. Start on quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So something really simple that everyone can follow. Okay? Another easy thing you can do is connecting your chord tones. So let's say I want to get up to my D. So an easy way to do it would be to start on my B note. So start on the chord tone below it and go up to it. You know, kind of like the common kickoff. So I'm walking from 1 chord tone. I'm walking from my B up to my D. So I'm walking from 1 chord tone to the other. In this case, I'm walking up chromatically. but you could walk up, you know, just not chromatically. You could just do it major scale. Something like that. If you want something even more complex, is instead of starting from one chord tone below, start 2 chord tones below. So we want to get up to our D, that's our ending note. Let's start on our G. So now we're down 2 chord tones below, so we could walk up. So we're going to need more time. You could walk straight up the scale, single string or hammer-ons. Or melodically. So if you want a longer kickoff, start 2 chord tones below, and you'll even have a longer kickoff. If you want to go even crazier, start 3 chord tones below. So let's start all the way down on a low D, and we're going to get up to our high D. So you could do something like, or, you know, something like that. So really knowing the chord tones is the best place to create your kickoffs. The longer time you have, start another chord tone lower and you can make even a longer kickoff. This also helps with your scales, and I'm using kind of some major scale stuff here. It doesn't necessarily always matter how you get there. You can do it chromatically or more of a bluesy, you know. Or start above the note. That's kind of cool. You could start above the note and then go below it and then come back up to it. Something like that. Okay, let's take the same idea and do it in C. So I'll show you some kickoffs for C. And again, remember finding your ending notes. So let's go up to our chord tones again. So we got C, E, and G. And remember, you don't have to play them out of this position. That's just where you find your notes. So we got C, E, and in this case G, or your 5th fret. Let's do the same thing. So those are our ending notes. Let's walk up to each of those notes. You know, something like that, or you could do, or. So I'm finding those ending notes, and I'm either walking up to it, in this case I walked up to it, or you could walk down. Or go up to the high one, you could do. So remember, just find your ending note, and then I'm either going from below it or above it, and then figuring out how much time we need. Those are our 3 things. Find your ending note, figure do you want to go from below the note or above the note, and then figure out how much time you need. Okay, last let's do it in D. So we got our chord tones. In this case, D, F sharp, and A. So we could do it down here. You could do. You could walk up. Or do it melodically. Or come from above the note. Or bluesy, or, you know, all these things are trying. Just remember, find your ending note. Or come from a lower chord tone, like I said. So you could come down from the low D, and I want to get up to my high D. You could do. Or let's say I want to end on my A note, so it's my 5th, and I'm going to start on my low D, so you could do something like. Again, I'm just experimenting. These are just things I'm working up on the spot, and if you find one you like, then save it. But remember, you can either go two routes. You can try and remember all these different kickoffs and remember where they work, or you can learn how to create your own, and then you can kind of play it by ear and make up one that worked for the song that you're playing, or mix it up and try something new, you know. I'm always trying to look for new little things I can do, and anytime I can kind of create my own, I remember it a lot better, and it helps me solidify what I've been learning. So I'd really recommend trying your own. I'll put a bunch on the tab that you can try, but the best thing you can do with this is take these three ideas and try and come up with your own kickoffs. All right, hopefully that gives you some stuff to work on. All right, good luck.